Hello friend humans, Lucas Levy Keppel here, and I'm out in the Ouachita National Forest out in southeast Oklahoma on the Arkansas border, and about to take the Horse Thief Springs Trail out to Horse Thief Springs and have an opportunity to see some of these historical sites. I understand this is a beautiful trail. I've got my hammock and the rest of gear along, so I'll be staying the night out there as a one-night backpacking trip. I'm glad that you're able to come with me today, and I hope that you'll come along with me and enjoy our hike together. Whew. So, got a bit of a little weird walk. This is kind of my spider web clearing. I know spiders aren't that bad, and they'll try to get back down to the ground as far as that all goes. But I recently was hiking out near Norman at Thunderbird Lake with my spouse Ilana. It was just a day hike. We didn't really think anything of it. I didn't apply bug spray or anything like that, thinking, oh, we're just going to be walking for maybe an hour at most. Well, that was a terrible idea, not to wear bug spray, because I managed to come across a nest of little harvest mites, or chiggers as they're sometimes called. And both of us, Ilana and I, had our feet covered with chigger bites. And let me tell you, the itch from that has lasted now 2 weeks for me, 2 weeks later, if you can believe that. I said I wanted to look out for spiders. Well, that's a pretty sizable one there. Get back up to your web. You're not catching me today. There you go. Off the trail with your webs. Yeah, so this trail marked with white blazes along the way. There are some yellow blazes on trees as well, though I understand those mostly mark horse path, equestrian paths. And we're still very close to the Cedar Lake recreation area, just getting started. It's kind of a neat walk in the woods so far. I'm looking forward to doing more of it with you. Fun little rock garden. There we go. I have no idea what this plant is, but it is amazingly like a walking stick. By which I mean the bug. And it's just growing here. Middle of the woods. So I've just crossed a road. This is a major road, one that I actually drove in on. And it's nice to know that there's still some access out here. But this marks about the point that there's going to be a split. So after this, we'll get to choose whether to go west or east. And I think I'm going to go to the west today. And go up Snake Mountain and then back around. It's a little bit of a longer route, but I feel like if I do that today, it'll make tomorrow a little quicker, being able to get back to the car on the way out. But in the meanwhile, get to enjoy some of this nature. was just hiking along here and thought it was awfully nice of them to leave a hole in the barbed wire so that the hikers could get through. Trail goes right through this barbed wire fence. And it's just, you know, there's even a post for it and everything, but there's no barbed wire attached. So I guess they're marking out the boundary of something. Anyway, we'll soldier on here. Time for my first pack down break of the day. Found a nice little rock to perch on here. Beautiful view of a valley over there, and the trail continues up that way. Sure is nice to take the pack off for a moment and have a little bit of a sit for a bit. I'm going to have a complete cookie. Try to get my energy back up here. There may not be any water flowing here right now, but I bet if it had rained a lot recently, this would be a nice little flowing creek bed. Fortunately, I'm doing great with water. I packed in probably 3.5 liters. Should be more than enough to get me to a water source, especially since I know that there is a water source at the halfway mark on the trail, 7 miles in. But we're going to keep on keeping on. Aha! Choice presents itself. Here at last is the reward for climbing up most of Snake Mountain. There's a view of Cedar Lake, which is where we started the hike. Zoom in a bit, you can kind of see the dam over there and a little bit of the lake. But I appreciate that this is pointed out. Great place to have lunch. Hi. It's probably a good time to talk about why this trail is called Horse Thief Trail, Horse Thief Springs Trail. As the name implies, there's a spring that we're going to get to that still has water coming out of the mountain today. Not on the top here of Snake Mountain, but when we get closer to the Ouachita Trail, we'll be able to get to it. But before Oklahoma became a state in 1907, it was formerly called Indian Territory. This is where, of course, the Native American tribes were removed to during the Indian Removal Act and the Trail of Tears and all of that. But even before that, Oklahoma was set aside as Indian Territory and was the place that the federal government of the United States hoped to move Native people. It's a terrible part of our history. But as far as this particular area goes, a lot of Anglos, white people, thought that, hey, Indian territory, the law doesn't apply to me. And so they'd run across the border from Arkansas thinking that the federal government couldn't follow them into Indian territory. But because it was the federal government that set aside the Indian territory, the U.S. Marshals were able to operate here just as easily. And in fact, you may have heard about the Dalton gang, or the Dalton brothers, which were a group of brothers and some others that joined together to be raiders and horse thieves. But before that, they started out their careers as deputy marshals and sheriff's deputies in the Fort Smith, Arkansas area, which was the region that had jurisdiction over this part of Oklahoma. They were paid so little, they were only paid by a bounty and not on a monthly basis, so they had to keep bringing people in or they wouldn't get paid at all. They were paid so little that it ended up making more sense for them to steal horses from people in the region rather than do their jobs as deputies of the U.S. Marshal Service. So they became outlaws and robbed trains all the way from Kansas to California. But this was the region that they were got a start as the first as members of law enforcement, and then later as on the other side of the law as outlaws. And it's not clear whether the Daltons were the ones for whom Horse Thief Springs were named, but to me it seems fairly likely that they were at least part of the legend of the region. You see, Horse Thief Springs is up on a mountain, and it makes a good hideaway with water, which is one of the things you need in a good hideaway place. So the legend grew that this is where the outlaws would come to get away from the law. I'm so glad to have had a chance to stop for lunch here and enjoy the views while eating my trail ramen. Well, let's keep going on the trail, and we'll see if we can get a little closer to Horse Thief Springs. So here I am, bushwhacking through the jungles of Oklahoma. But, you know, every now and then there's a sign that says we're going the right way. And also, every now and then there's a spider in a web that will be moved on. There we go. So, well past Snake Mountain now, and as you can tell, we're heading downhill now, but run into a small snag in the plans, and that is I've run out of my main water source. Until I find a nice creek or get to the springs, all I've got is my emergency water, which, you know, it's not the end of the world. I do have water in case I absolutely need it, but it's not a good sign to be several miles away when running out of your main water source. However, I do think I have an option up ahead to take a trail that would bypass the Ouachita Trail. I think it's an equestrian trail itself. would bypass the Ouachita Trail and head down to a creek crossing, which would give me water. The downside of that, while it would be sooner to water, it would bypass Horse Thief Springs entirely. And, you know, that's the whole reason we're here. So I'm keeping it in mind, just in case things get terrible. It is very warm now that the sun's out from the clouds. But here's hoping that, you know, the right path will present itself. Okay, here's my last moment of decision. To go down this trail here, which possibly leads to a dead end that's somewhat near a creek, or do I continue on the way that I've been going, following the main trail? I think though the possibility of water is nice, I've got to stay on the main trail. I know that there's water at Horse Thief Springs, and I know I can make it there. And I've still got, you know, 16 ounces of my emergency water, so I think I'll be okay. We got this. So I finally made it up the grueling switchback climb. Oh, that was really difficult. This sign was hidden, and I went past it since it was facing the wrong way. Almost walked up to the road, which is nice that the road has some access here. But 1.2 miles to Horse Thief Springs. Ooh. Boy, do I need it. Down to the last few swallows of the emergency water. It'll be really good to refill. It's my little home away from home. Gotta appreciate many things. See that branch that's up there? It can't fall on me during the night, even if it wanted to. It's attached over there, and that end, even if it blew, it would blow away and maybe hit the tarp, but it wouldn't hit me. It was rather hard finding two trees that were far enough apart for the tarp. But this location was a pretty good one, even if I did have to climb up a bit of a hill to get here. And you can just see the spring poking out over there. Good morning, friend humans. Obviously, we made it in last night to the springs, but it was a little dark by the time we got here, and I did not want to make things, I don't know, more complicated with video. Fortunately, there was water. I was able to refill up the water that was needed, and had some wonderful spring water. Now, I say wonderful, it would not be wonderful drinking right out of it, and as you'll see in just a moment, the spring is pretty gross. I mean, it's there, and it's water, and it's moving, which is more than any other water on this trip so far, but oh, it is gross. There's leaves and dead bugs and things. Now it's 8:30, so I'm going to be on the road here shortly, and by road I mean getting back on the trail. So I've got to hike back to the car before I can drive back home. But let's take a look around at the springs so you can get an idea of what this place is like. So these are the springs. There's not much springing here. The stone structure was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s, and I'm not really sure what they hoped it would do. There's like a stone bench out there if you wanted to relax, but I don't know that you'd be doing much relaxing here. This concrete slab that I'm standing on is the output of the springs. There's a little metal pipe that runs into this kind of into the trough, for want of a better word. And that carries the water from the spring out into the trough. The trough is then subducted underneath this stone structure, and it runs down the hill. So it is self-emptying as well as everything else. But you can tell this structure's been here a while. I love the texture of the stone with the kind of moss growing on it. It just reminds me of something out of, oh, I don't know, out of legend. But yeah, so here's how we're going to get the water. As you can tell, I have both a bag and a bottle. The bottle is going to be for when I finish up with the bag. The bag doesn't get it all, but the bottle will get some extra. I'm going to try to take some extra water with me. I don't expect to be hiking anywhere near as long today, but given how much fun it was not to run out of water, I thought it would be good to have some extra. So let's see here. Use the bottle to move some of this floating junk out of the way. As you can tell, it's hard to fill the bag up. So that's why I have the bottle too. There we go. I'm going to say this again. This is unfiltered water, and it is not safe for drinking. There's even a sign out there that says you need to boil it. Boiling would be fine for killing the things in it, but filtering is going to get more of the junk out of it. Good day. I'm finally back out on the trail. As you can tell, I've got a nice thing here that says Horse Thief Springs East Loop, which is the shorter loop. We're going to be taking that. But this is where the Horse Thief Springs Trail crosses the Ouachita Trail, which is marked by those blue blazons along the way here. If you happen to be hiking the Ouachita Trail, I do recommend stopping at Horse Thief Springs for water. Even if it's not the most tasty stuff in the world, it is there, and it's, hey, high up. You don't have to go down and then back up again to get it. But because it's high up, that means I've got a lot of elevation change today. Yesterday, in the 9 miles that I hiked, there were some 6,000 feet of elevation change, most of it at the end hiking up to the Ouachita Trail. I'm looking forward today to heading downhill for the most part. Well, let's keep going. We're going to make it back to Cedar Lake. Pretty nice campsite. About half a mile from the springs. Not too bad. There's a little water here. Not flowing, but it exists. One of the nice things about when these trails become horseback trails, become a little wider, a little less rocky. I don't have to watch my feet as much. And there are fewer spiders, which I take as a win, believe me. Just past a camp that was on the site of a dry riverbed. But I would bet that if it were at all wet recently, that campsite would have had water. Which is a big deal, as I showed yesterday. Well, I guess there's been some horses nearby. So, finally on the last little segment of this hike, back at the campground, Cedar Lake Recreation Area. I just need to climb a few hills, get up to where my car is parked. That'll be the end of this hike. By the end of it, I will have hiked 16 miles total, not today. Run into an untold number of spiders. Ran out of water. Collected a bit more water from the springs. Whew. Had 2 hot meals. And had a wonderful trip, despite being exhausted. So thanks for coming with me. I hope that you'll come along on the next trip, and if you enjoyed this, check out the video I have of the travel to Colorado backpacking trip. That was quite an adventure too. But I'm glad you're here with me. Take care, friend human.